What's the most disturbing piece of audio there is? The 911 call of Loretta Picard, a disabled elderly woman who died in a house fire. She was physically unable to get out of the house on her own. There were firefighters outside her house, but due to a miscommunication, they thought the house was empty. On the call, you hear the woman talking as the fire gets worse and she gets closer to death. The weepy-voiced killer. He killed women, completely mutilated them and proceeded to call the police while crying about what happened and how he can't stop himself. Then he'd hang up and do it again. Since other people are mentioning videos with horrible audio, that one of the nightclub burning down. The sounds of people screaming trying to get out of the crush and then burning to death is just awful. The Ruth Price 911 call where she's this old woman living alone in her apartment when some stranger keeps trying to get in. He eventually does and then she can be heard screaming for her life. I think he was stabbing her. Fortunately, she survived and lived another 14 years. Pretty sure it was used to train dispatch in the past for how horrific the audio is. The 911 call from one of the teachers present at the Columbine school shooting. You can hear the gunshots and the gunmen cheering and whooping. You also hear when they enter the library, which is where they killed the most students. It's chilling. The woman who helped build the case against Jared from Subway by recording him talking about his enjoyment of pedophilia. Listening to a couple minutes of him describing what he's done made me want to vomit. The process of getting this stuff on tape wrecked the woman's mental health, and it's easy to see why. A 911 call of a little girl who had just found her brother in his room after he committed suicide. The most heartbreaking part is when she screams, "Why did you do it?" I'm sure others have mentioned it, but one that really, truly upset me was when a poor delivery lady had mistakenly driven into flood waters. She called 911 and the dispatcher was cruel beyond words. I'll never forget it. The 911 call of the lady stuck in her car in a flood and the operator is so unhelpful, she ends up drowning on the other end of the phone. That 911 call from the guy trapped in one of the Twin Towers. The cult leader from the documentary Keep Sweet Pray and Obey where he records his rape of a young girl in his secret room in which only the most devout followers are allowed. It's haunting. The 911 call of the woman whose chimp was eating her friend's face. For me personally, it's audio and video. It's a grandmother who killed her son-in-law. And for some reason the police bring in the woman's young granddaughter, daughter of the victim. And the grandmother is insane and asks for a hug and the little girl screams, "No, you killed me, Daddy." I honestly have no idea why the police brought in the girl. It's horrible. The 911 call from the attack of Travis the chimpanzee. Travis' screams can be heard in the background at the start of the tape as Harold, owner of Travis, pleads for the police, who initially believed the call to be a hoax until she said, "He's eating her." Jared from Subway talking about how he likes kids who come from bad homes because they are easier to manipulate into having sex. Don't listen to it. The Apollo 1 crew. This one is accompanied by video, but the reaction of a man whose wife gets killed when a brick flies off the back of a truck they were driving behind on a highway and came through their windshield. The audio was captured by their dash cam, one of those things you can't unhear. The 911 call Jennifer Pan made after she hired people to try and kill her parents. At one point her surviving father starts shouting and yelling in the background. This is after he had been shot multiple times, I think one of which may have been to his head or neck. When I tell you that I can still hear her father's screams, I mean it. It might not be the worst thing on here, but it's fucking harrowing. Jim Jones talking into a microphone while his followers poison their children. I'd venture that the Toolbox Killer's audio recording of them torturing and raping Shirley Ledford is probably pretty high up on the list. It has never been released to the public, or leaked, but there does exist the full transcript online. Accompanied by video. but a lot of the schoolchildren who drowned on the MV Seal recorded short video clips as the ship was sinking. Hearing the crew telling the students over loudspeaker to stay in place and stay on board is absolutely chilling. The children make snide remarks about how crazy it is to stay on board with the ship listing so far, but they remain in place. The voicemail my stepfather left my mom the morning of 9/11. He worked on the 99th floor, and called to tell us he was okay, and was making his way down the stairs. He said he would call us again when he was outside. He never did. In the call, you can hear him telling others to keep their heads down, out of the smoke, but what really makes the audio as disturbing as it is the screaming. The screams in the background are some of the most bone-chillingly real terror I think I've ever heard. That girl who called her mom as she was being eaten by a bear. The girl's name was Olga Moskaliova. A few people have said it was a hoax, however I have been unable to find any evidence that it is, in fact, a hoax. Although hopefully it was. No one should die like that, and no one should hear their child die like that. The mom screaming her heart out when she walks in on her son who just blasted his face off with a shotgun. It's from the 4chan kid suicide video years ago. Yeah, the gore was pretty intense, but it was so quick you don't really process it. Then his mom comes home with his little sisters and it's the worst piece of audio I have heard. Fucked me up for a good while and got me to stop being so morbidly curious, because there are some things we just shouldn't see or hear willingly. The Golden State Killer phone tapes where he calls his victims for years after the crimes to taunt them always gives me chills. By all accounts, it's the Norris and Bittaker tapes. Otherwise known as the Toolbox Killers. I've seen a transcript. Deeply unpleasant stuff. The audio of the huge dairy farm that caught fire in Texas is fucking haunting. 18,000 cows crammed into a warehouse and burning alive. This is a minor one, but it messed with me. It was a UFO documentary on TV in about 1995. There's a bit where the woman being abducted puts out a tape recorder in her room all night and captures a male voice saying, "Don't wake up." So that, in itself, was really scary. But all I could think of was that this was a rape about to happen, and the poor woman was using UFO stuff as a cover to protect her sanity. And that just rocked me. And if someone in law enforcement heard it, wouldn't they feel the same? The whole thing was just hard to process. Warren Jeffs of the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints tape recorded himself raping a 12-year-old. The most disturbing audio I've heard. There is a video of a man and his wife-child riding in a car on the highway. They are behind a truck carrying bricks. Something falls off the truck and goes straight through the windshield on the passenger side. I haven't seen it in a long time, but you cannot see what's going on. I believe the brick rips the camera off. But there is a brief pause while the shock wears off and you just hear the worst scream from the husband and the child is crying. The 999 call from an elderly woman who had just been robbed. She had a heart attack from the stress and died while on the phone to the operator. The operator was crying, and you could just hear her sadly say, "Oh, Maureen." When the line went quiet as she died. Me frustrated that no one is posting links. Also me glad that no one is posting links. Not really a tape, but the video of the 2023 shark attack in Egypt. Hearing the guy being eaten alive while screaming "Dad" was terrifying. One I haven't seen mentioned. I remember videos of phones ringing like crazy around victims after the Pulse nightclub shooting and the Vegas shooting. There's audio of an astronaut burning up in the atmosphere. I don't recall if it was an American mission or a Russian one. Owen Hart was a WWE wrestler who died during an entrance on a live pay-per-view. His harness he came down to the ring on snapped. There's one clip of it that exists in any public form, and it's an audio recording from the Spanish announcer table where you can hear nothing but a sickening, crunchy thump as he hits the ring. Supposedly, the original video recording of the incident is locked deep away, with instructions to never watch or open printing.